This is today's cyber news for December 2nd, 2025. You can also subscribe to the newsletter and view the archive of previous headlines at DailyCyber.news. Investigators have revealed that Chrome and Edge users installed browser extensions that quietly spied on their every move. The Shady Panda campaign used seemingly useful add-ons that could execute remote code and siphoned data from visited websites once in place. Over time, these extensions harvested credentials, session cookies, and sensitive business information from people who believed they were using safe tools. Stores have started to pull the extensions, yet many personal and corporate machines will still be running them for some time. That leaves a long tail of exposed users who must manually clean up their browsers and reset access to critical services. Researchers say commercial companies in China are selling advanced steganography products that help state-aligned hacking teams hide in plain sight. These tools let operators tuck commands and stolen data inside ordinary-looking images and documents that flow through email and chat every day. Instead of crafting one-off tricks, espionage crews can now plug polished products into their tool chains and move faster. This industrial support deepens the connection between nominally private firms and long-running state-backed cyber campaigns. It also means defenders must assume that some of the most dangerous traffic will look visually harmless as it crosses their networks. A hacker who ran fake airport and in-flight Wi-Fi networks for years has now received a 7-year prison sentence. He set up convincing wireless hotspots that mimicked legitimate airport and airline networks, then quietly harvested passwords, session cookies, and personal data from travelers. Many people logged into corporate email, cloud apps, and bank accounts while believing they were on trusted connections. The case gives a rare inside look at how long-term abuse of public Wi-Fi can silently compromise both personal and business systems. It is a stark reminder that any open network in travel hubs should be treated as hostile by default. In South Korea, e-commerce giant Coupang has disclosed a breach that exposed information about tens of millions of shoppers. Early figures suggest around 33.7 million customer records were affected, including names, contact details, and purchase histories. That kind of data is ideal fuel for targeted scams, social engineering, and identity fraud against ordinary households. Regulators, banks, and card issuers are already preparing for knock-on effects as criminals test and reuse the stolen information across services. The incident turns a single corporate breach into a broad consumer confidence challenge for the country's online retail ecosystem. Law enforcement agencies have seized a major cryptocurrency mixer accused of laundering more than 1 billion euros in criminal funds. Investigators say this service was a favored cash-washing hub for ransomware gangs and other cybercriminals who wanted to blur the trail of extortion payments. By taking over its infrastructure and pulling it offline, authorities struck directly at the financial plumbing that keeps many attacks profitable. The operation likely yielded rich transaction data about the groups and affiliates that relied on the mixer to move money. While other services remain, the pressure on this part of the ecosystem is clearly rising and may reshape how criminals handle their profits. Threat analysts have tracked more than 2,000 fake online stores that appeared just in time for peak holiday shopping. These sites mimic well-known brands and offer steep discounts, yet their real purpose is to capture card numbers, passwords, and personal details from bargain hunters. Victims may receive poor quality goods or nothing at all while their payment data is tested and resold through criminal markets. Card issuers and fraud teams are already seeing patterns consistent with mass harvesting through these bogus merchants. The campaign turns seasonal shopping excitement into a large-scale data theft engine that will echo in fraud statistics for months. Users of SmartTube, a popular open-source YouTube client for smart televisions and Android devices, were hit by a malicious software update. Attackers stole signing keys and pushed a tainted version that added hidden tracking and remote control features to an app people ran in their living rooms. Once installed, the compromised app could call home, download new code, and potentially pivot deeper into home or small office networks. Maintainers are now working to revoke the bad certificates and ship clean builds, but many devices update slowly, if at all. The event shows how quickly a trusted entertainment app can be twisted into a quiet surveillance tool. Developers who rely on the NPM ecosystem are facing a self-replicating worm that hides in poisoned packages. When pulled into projects, the malicious code searches for cloud credentials, application programming interface tokens, and configuration files on developer machines and build servers. It then exfiltrates those secrets to attacker infrastructure and attempts to modify local projects so they spread the infected dependency further. Because NPM is deeply woven into modern JavaScript and Node.js development, one compromised machine can contaminate many internal projects. The real goal is less about corrupting code and more about turning ordinary dependency installs into a direct path to cloud account takeover. Attackers have also published a fake material icon theme extension for Visual Studio Code that secretly functions as a backdoor. To developers, it looks like a simple icon pack that makes project files easier to recognize at a glance. Behind the scenes, the extension pulls down additional code and establishes persistent remote access to the workstation. That access puts source code, cached credentials, and connected corporate resources at risk whenever the editor is open. It underscores how even cosmetic-looking extensions in trusted marketplaces can quietly open doors into high-value development environments. Developers are facing another surge of malicious glassworm packages appearing in Visual Studio-compatible marketplaces. The latest glassworm uploads masquerade as helpful add-ons, yet quietly execute code, steal tokens, and probe local repositories once installed. In this wave, the operators have rebuilt their presence under fresh names and slightly altered descriptions after earlier takedowns. That persistence turns everyday coding activity into a quiet intrusion path toward build systems and source code. Cleanup efforts are underway in some repositories, but teams still need to manually scour their environments and remove any lingering glassworm artifacts. In India, a mandatory telecom fraud reporting app is now being preloaded on new phones and cannot be removed by users. The government-backed tool is meant to make it easier to flag scam calls in messages, yet it ships with broad permissions and will sit on hundreds of millions of devices. Security experts warn that any flaw in the app, its update process, or its back-end systems could be exploited and weaponized at national scale. That risk turns a well-intentioned shield into a tempting prize for attackers who might pry into call metadata or user activity. Vendors and enterprises are only beginning to study how this app behaves on their fleets and what controls they must add around it. Customer support environments are in the spotlight as typo-squatted domains begin to mimic Zendesk-style portals. These look-alike sites copy branding and login flows in order to trick agents and customers into typing credentials into attacker-controlled pages. Once passwords are captured, intruders can sign in to real support systems, read sensitive tickets, and even forge replies that reset access for other accounts. That level of access lets an attacker quietly pivot into billing systems, identity providers, or internal tools that support teams routinely touch. Defenders are racing to block the spoofed domains and harden support logins before those stolen accounts are widely abused. Ransomware operators are experimenting with a new Windows packer called TangleCrypt that is designed to outfox endpoint tools. The packer wraps payloads in layers of obfuscation and works with a malicious driver that attempts to blind or disable security products. Once deployed, this pairing lets attackers plant ransomware and supporting tools with a lower chance of early detection. That extra breathing room gives crews more time to map networks, locate backups, and clobber recovery options before they start encryption. Incident responders are now updating detection logic and driver policies to catch TangleCrypt-style behavior earlier in the kill chain. Across Central Asia, government ministries and diplomatic bodies are again being probed by a Russian-speaking espionage crew. The attackers send tailored phishing messages with malicious documents that, when opened, install custom implants on official workstations. These implants quietly siphon documents, email, and credentials over long periods, focusing on policy, energy, and security topics rather than quick theft. That slow and patient collection effort aims to influence or anticipate regional decisions instead of causing visible disruption. Defenders in the region are working to upgrade mail filtering, endpoint monitoring, and user training while they hunt for existing footholds. A group known as Bloody Wolf is abusing the legitimate Net Support Manager remote tool in offices across Central Asia. The crew sends fake government-themed emails that carry weaponized PDFs and shortcuts, which then install net support in a covert configuration when opened. Once active, the tool gives attackers full remote desktop access that looks very similar to normal support activity. That tactic lets them quietly browse files, capture screens, and piggyback into other systems across networks that trust remote assistance software. Security teams are responding by inventorying all net support instances, tightening installation rules, and flagging remote sessions that originate from unusual locations. North Korean-aligned Kimsuki operators are pushing a new piece of remote access malware called Kim Jong-rat through fake national tax notice emails. The messages contain compressed archives with shortcut files that pretend to be official documents but actually launch the malware when opened. Once installed, Kim Jong-rat collects Windows credentials, browser-stored passwords, documents, and screenshots from targeted machines. That focus on government, research, and policy-related users helps the group quietly harvest sensitive information over time instead of making loud moves. Organizations in the crosshairs are scrambling to block dangerous attachment types and educate staff about the risks of rushing to open tax-themed messages. Operation Hanoi Thief is aiming at recruiters and information technology staff in Vietnam with malicious resume archives. The attackers send job applications that look legitimate and bundle compressed files that contain pseudo-polyglot payloads which trigger when opened. After execution, the malware targets browsers and related tools, skimming stored passwords and session cookies that grant access to corporate portals. That strategy exploits the trust placed in hiring workflows and turns busy recruiters into unwitting entry points for credential theft. Companies in the region are responding by tightening sandboxing for unsolicited attachments and adding extra monitoring around the accounts and browsers used by hiring teams. An espionage group called Tomaris has updated its implants so that command traffic is now routed through popular chat services such as Telegram and Discord. The new tools wrap instructions and stolen data inside normal-looking requests to these platforms, making the traffic blend in with everyday conversations. As a result, simple domain blocks or protocol filters no longer cleanly separate malicious flows from genuine messaging use. That camouflage forces defenders to rely more on host behavior, process lineage, and unusual usage patterns for those chat applications. Governments and organizations facing Tamaris activity are starting to review where such services are allowed and how closely they are watched on high-value networks. That's the Bare Metal Cyber Daily Brief for December 2nd, 2025. For more, visit baremetalcyber.com. You can also subscribe to the newsletter and view the archive of previous headlines at DailyCyber.news. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.